Today we are talking to Aimee Garcia, and Paul Campbell came back, and we're talking about the cases of Mystery Lane, Death is Listening. And I have to tell you, I know I've said our interviews are great, and they always are, but today is absolutely hilarious. The two of them are so stinking funny. The stories they tell, you're not going to hear them anywhere else. And we almost had to stop recording. We were laughing so hard. This episode is hilarious. So without further ado, here's Aimee and here's Paul. This podcast was created by fans for fans and is not affiliated with or sponsored by Hallmark or the Hallmark channel. Okay, well, this is a very fun day here. We have Aimee Garcia and Paul Campbell. I haven't talked to you in ages. How are things going?
Boy, so good. I'll answer for both of us. Great. Things are going great.
Perfect. And Aimee, thank you very much. We've been dying to get you on here ever since we first saw Cases. It is such a good mystery. So very, very excited to have you join us as well.
Happy to be here.
All right, let's get it rolling. We're going to start with first, how well do you guys know each other? So you guys do play a married couple. So I'm not going to ask anything like, what color your toothbrushes are or anything like that, but just some general questions. All right. So Aimee, what is Paul's favorite type of cuisine?
I'm going to go with Italian.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's funny. Was that just a complete guess?
Complete guess. Just roll the next.
Like Italian, Mexican, you're going to be pretty close with most people going with one of those two. So
yeah, he would have been. Guess. But also, I like American too. Burgers and fries. I'm pretty easy to please, but Italian for sure.
All right.
Pizza all day.
Paul, it's going to be a little tougher now. If we're going tapping into Aimee's Spotify, what's the music we're going to be finding? Give me a band. Give me a singer.
It's Calypso for sure. It's Calypso. It's some like hard hitting polka. Give you a band, Sade.
I mean, that's not totally off. But remember, I played you a song.
Yeah, he's a Latin gentleman. It wasn't Mark Anthony.
No, but remember, I'll give you a hint. He was a multi-hyphenate, an old school actor, director, writer in the silent film era.
David Alan Grier. Charlie Chaplin.
Yes.
Charlie Chaplin. Yeah.
I played Paul a song, which a lot of people don't know that Charlie Chaplin was a composer. So not only did he write, produce, star, direct his own movies, he put the soundtrack to them. And he actually wrote, oh geez, now I'm going to have to Google myself. Don't quote me on this, but I believe he wrote, "Smile though your heart is aching, smile even though it's breaking."
Did he really?
Now everyone's going to Google it.
You know what? It works for me.
I think just leave it alone. Just go with confidence. Just go, that is truth. And then no one's going to reach you no one's going to go like, Aimee, what's your personal email? So we can actually respond that no one's going to be able to correct you. So just let's pretend that's truth.
There's truth in my book.
Well, hit me up on social media if I'm wrong.
And we got to hear you sing too. So that was a bonus.
Just 7 bags of hate mail. You're like, wow, that was really not the response I was expecting.
She was America's darling until this comment came out.
Until the Chaplin comment.
And now canceled. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, Aimee.
Let me answer that question. Charlie Chaplin. I'm going to answer my question. Charlie Chaplin.
Wow.
Correct?
You guys really are a solid married couple here.
We're listening.
All right, Aimee.
Yes.
When we talked to Paul, if you listened to the podcast this morning, which I'm sure you did, bright and early, posted at 3 a.m. Pacific time, you would know, what is Paul's favorite type of wood to work with in his hobby of woodworking?
Yeah, Aimee.
Paul's favorite type of wood in his hobby of woodworking is clearly
Drum roll, please.
sycamore.
Incorrect.
Walnut.
Oh, that's up there. That's like number 2.
Yeah, so the walnut was one of the ones you mentioned. So
It's pretty good.
Oh, well, who was up at 3 a.m. listening?
exactly.
Actually, that is a good question. Who was up at 3 a.m. listening?
Well, there's the East Coast people, right?
Oh,
So we're
right.
all
right.
the West Coast. It's all those East
So,
Coast
Paul,
people.
what's your number one choice of wood?
Well, it's a certain cut of white oak. It's like a rift sawn or a quarter sawn white oak, but it's not just white oak. And you'd recognize it from like cabinetry everywhere. You're like, oh yeah, every time I see that, I love the way that looks. It's a very specific cut that gives it a certain look, and that's my favorite. Right now, it changes every few years. It's like things go in and out of fashion, but this one's been the most recent.
Learn something new.
Now you know,
There you
right?
go.
This is the stuff you should know about each other, right? All right, last one. Paul, what is Aimee's favorite snack food?
Well, apples and peanut butter,
Well,
veggies and hummus,
to be fair, apples and peanut butter
apples and almond butter.
is what I eat on set constantly. But I
Okay.
think what you're I don't know if it's considered a snack, but I think my favorite food, which isn't technically, I guess, a meal, is French fries. Is that what you were thinking? Or no? What is my
I wasn't thinking that because how would I possibly know? But I was actually really proud of myself for remembering the apples and almond butter. And boy, have I ever been slapped.
No, and I'm just more fascinated with the fact that Aimee considers French fries a meal. You don't need hold back everything. I just need the French fries.
Well, based on volume of consumption, I mean, anything can be a meal technically, right?
That's a good point. Good
I
point.
eat French fries every day. So, but Paul wouldn't know this. But every day after we wrap, I go home and my treat to myself is French fries.
Okay.
That's
Like
why I got
no, we're not done with
regular
this topic.
potato
Hang on.
fries? Are we talking like sweet potato or any fancy one here?
I can eat all kinds of fries.
Okay.
I do like McDonald's fries, but I recently went to Italy with my family, and their fries are pretty good. I'm a fry.
Wait, you went to Italy for fries?
Yes, they're excellent.
It's not a place I would think of for
They're delicious.
whatever.
You're a frynatic.
Can
I just have a logistical question, because now this has raised a whole world of stuff that I didn't know about. But we often wrap these, like when we're filming, we'll often wrap late 10, 11, 12. So usually every day after filming, you'll get French fries. Where? You're at a hotel, so you go to the restaurant and you order takeout, you get room service, do you stop at a drive-through?
All of the above. It depends what time.
Wow.
When
And what about like
when she's cruising
what
around,
about
she's
frozen?
spying like all the late night McDonald's, Arby's, everyone else
Just
who's
got it
got the
mapped
fries
out.
to know where to go. Yeah.
This is blowing my mind. Okay.
They know my order. They're like the usual. I'm like, you got it.
Because you're the only one that's been there on an hour either side of that. They're like, oh, there's a car coming. We know who that is.
Exactly.
Well, the more you know. That's good to know all that stuff.
All right.
This is helpful.
This is not a question for each other. It's like your own question. But what is your favorite movie of all time? So, Aimee, you can go first.
Oh, that's so tough. But I think I have to say Back to the Future. I don't know if you can see.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
it's peeking out there. Yep.
Back to the Future. I love it. I think it's a perfectly structured movie, and I think it's funny, fun, never gets old. What's yours, Paul?
It's got all the heart. It's got a lot of heart.
A lot of humor, love.
Yeah. That's a really excellent choice. For sure, that one's right up there for me. I always my answer for the last 30 years has been Ghostbusters. It's my favorite movie. I think again, like it's sort of classically underrated a little bit. I think if the movie is a masterpiece. This is where I get a little nerdy, but like the comedy is perfect. It's not pushed. It's all character driven, and it's so understated. It is a masterclass in comedy by a group of absolute geniuses across the board. Rick Moranis, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson, who I almost had a chance to work with in a Hallmark movie a few years ago. They were looking to cast an older gentleman in the movie, and we were filming in Mexico. And Ernie Hudson came up on this list of potential like actors that would be open to doing the role. And I'm like, can we get Ernie Hudson to be? So they offered it to him, and he said it was too far for him to travel for the amount of days. But that would have blown my mind to get to work with him.
I thought you would have rather had the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man to come and be the.
Oh no, I've worked with him. I've worked. That means, yeah, no, he's busy. He's booked solid. You can't get that guy. He's booked for years in advance.
Well, I have to say, I'm just thoroughly happy with both your answers, because neither of you went all, bougie or anything, and like, oh, Citizen Kane, it's just a classic. You went Ghostbusters and Back to the Future. Being a Gen X guy, love it.
Oh yeah. And I would say Home Alone too. I think that it brings out.
Wait, Home Alone 2 or Home Alone also?
No,
Home Alone as well.
The sequel.
Wait, but there was a movie. There was a Home Alone movie titled Home Alone as well. So do you mean the movie titled Home Alone as well, or do you mean?
No, was there really? No,
there wasn't. No.
I can never tell. I can never tell when he's joking. But Home Alone to me, it's fun. It brings us back to our childhood. It's just, of course he's like, I don't want my family anymore. And then at the end, he just wishes for his family. It's just all the feels.
Right.
I'd like to add, I just recently rewatched this again. I probably watched it a year ago, and then I rewatched it again with my son last week, and it's top of mind. But this remake of Matilda that was done in 2021 or 2022, that Tim Minchin, based on the Tim Minchin Broadway play, this with Emma Thompson, is an extraordinary movie. It is unbelievable. It's so good. The music, the performances, Emma Thompson is terrifying. And I'm like, I watched it and I'm like, this is filmmaking at its finest. Everything about that movie was like, of all the movies in the past few years that I have really walked away going, what was that? This is who's making these things? That's one of the movies that I kind of went, this is extraordinary. So if you got kiddos out there, even for adults, like you can watch it as an adult, but for kids, like 8 years old and up or 7 and up, it's an incredible movie.
Okay, we'll check it out.
Watch it.
I did promise to stay away from controversy, but I'm sorry, I'm going to go get a little controversial here. Best pizza, New York, Chicago, Detroit, or thin crust?
Oh.
I think New York.
I'm from Chicago, so obviously I'm biased. However, I do prefer thin crust over thick crust.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think New York for sure. There's a couple really great places in Vancouver. Of course, Italian being my favorite type of food, but there's a couple really good like wood fire pizza places in Vancouver that I frequent when I'm not too worried about what I'm eating, and they do a really good job. But I think nothing compares to like the real authentic pizza that you get from like that's been handed down from generation to generation in these like pizza families. Is that a thing? Pizza families?
Works for me.
I've actually almost missed a flight because I wanted to get New York pizza. I was in New York. I was there for a weekend, and I was leaving JFK, and I thought, okay, I really have a little window here. And if there can be no margin of error, I can get the pizza. And I got the pizza. I had the car wait outside. I ran in and I ate it on the way to the airport. And I was the last passenger on the flight, but it was totally worth it.
Completely.
And you just smelled like pizza, and everybody was just glaring at you.
No, they were thank you. They said thank you for bringing in that delicious pizza smell.
You're the person that gets on the elevator with like an open container of food, and they're just eating it, and everyone in the elevator is like, "What are you doing?"
I'm like, "Can I have some?" No.
Yeah.
Aimee.
Yes.
Your IMDb. We were talking before, like you're Charlie Chaplin, right? If you said it in the podcast, it's got to be real. speaking of your IMDb is crazy impressive. It says that you have a triple major from Northwestern, economics, journalism, and French. Now, is this real or is this like Google things?
This is real.
What the hell are you doing in movies then? You should be like
Hey,
running for
easy.
Well,
like running the world.
I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer, and then I also wanted to be Oprah, being from Chicago. She was my idol.
It's
And
not too late to be either of those. I just want to remind you.
right, true. But I majored in journalism because I wanted to be in journalism at some point. And I loved research and I loved interviewing people and I love learning new things. And I figured they just pay you to go learn new things, right? If you're like, oh, you gotta go to Alaska and document the bears eating the salmon. So you go up there, you learn about the bears, and you just take your notes. And I just idealize that kind of nomadic life. And then economics, because I credit my immigrant dad who said you need to learn how to let your money uh, carry you through any droughts that come up if you're going to be a freelancer. So economics came in handy, especially as an actor, because you have to learn, how to save your money and whatnot. And then French was more just because I had a couple credits to get the major, and I thought, why not? And so, my type A self just thought I'd nab a third.
And
It's a lot of typing. It's a lot of typing. That's a lot. That's impressive. I didn't know that either, actually.
IMDb, the things you learn.
Eric, I noticed you didn't mention my 2-year diploma in theater that I got from community college. I hope that's going to come up at some point in this interview, but I'll
you just
I'll
ruined
stand
it
by
for,
until
you
you're
ruined it
ready
for
to
me.
drop
That was
that
the
bomb.
highlight. All right. So the other thing it says is that you were going to compete for Mexico in the Olympic skiing. Now, is this true as well?
Oh my God! What? Talk us through it.
Spit all over my computer. I don't know if you can see me blush on this side. So that is not 100% false. I am half Mexican. My mom is from Mexico, and I had dual citizenship, Mexican citizenship and US citizenship. And my cousin from Mexico calls my mom one day. She says, does Aimee know how to ski? And my mom says, yes. And then, or Jess, because, that's how my mom talks. And, and my cousin says, well, would she be open to representing Mexico in the Winter Olympics?
What?
And so my mom asked me, and I said, "Of course, I'm so proud to be Mexican. I would be so honored to represent the Mexican people and the country, but I'm really not that good." And my cousin said, "It's okay. The fact that you just know how to ski, that qualifies you, because Mexico, a lot of people don't know Mexico City is actually a very tall city. It's one of the tallest cities in the world. So once in a blue moon it gets snow, but very rarely. So snowfall is not common in Mexico. So it's not the most, easily accessible sport. So so she just said, if she's open to it, it would be fun to have her represent. So I started training with my friend.
This is insane.
I know. It's one of those stranger than fiction. So he had his little stopwatch, and he had me start doing I don't even know how to call them, the
The
flags.
slalom.
It's a swallow, yeah, and I'm really not that good. I mean, you know how they say like pizza, speaking of pizza, like when kids are starting to learn, you hear the parents in the back when they have to start like pizza, and it means putting your skis together so that you break. So in my mind, I'm like peekaboo streak, She was an Olympian at the time, and I was like cruising, going really fast, just attacking the mountain. And then he videotaped me, and I'm going way too slow. I'm completely leaned back. I'm in pizza position, and it just does not give Olympic flair. So I still trained though. I kept training and then I got a job. So then I had to let that dream go. But I guess it's never too late.
Well, there was
That's one of
that
the craziest
Australian
things.
breakdancer
Ray
this
gun.
year.
I
Right.
was just going to say that you would have been the ray gun of skiing for that year.
Goodness.
All
You're like,
right,
we just need somebody, anybody.
and Paul,
Probably
Um,
we don't
cousin.
like to overshadow you. So now, what was your Olympic training that you did?
oh man, eating donuts? I don't know. What would I have been good at at an age when I would have been competing, like 18 years old? I didn't even know how to do my laundry. I don't know. There's nothing. Canada would have been like,
Favorite Olympic sport? Like, what's the sport where you're like in it with them and you're cheering them on and you're crying when they win or crying when they lose?
oh, all of them. Listen, if I was competing, it would have been a throwing sport like javelin or hammer throw or discus. I always really liked those. Not a runner. Never been a runner. Um,
So,
and the track and field, I don't find quite as moving. But like some of the sports, the winter sports, like the ice skating, some of those are extraordinary. The skiing, I don't care as much. I do get really into like the snowboarding and like the half pipe and stuff like that, where they do, and even this year with the skateboarding and some of the BMX, like I don't know why, but I think it feels like those the kids, the athletes that participate in those sports are sort of outliers in terms of like society, like the snowboarders. Those were always the kids you're like, just a bunch of snowboarders. Like those kids, they just hang out on the mountain all day. Those no good snowboarders. But then they're actually like these extraordinary athletes. And the skateboarding's always had a bad rap. It's not like polo where you're like it's super bougie. Skateboarding has been like an outlier sport, and suddenly you have these kids given opportunities to win gold medals, and it just feels incredible. It's like these sort of it's almost like an underdog story, and I know they're super well funded and they have huge money behind them, a lot of these, but it's such an outlier sport that when they do win, it feels like an underdog has like ascended to glory that they never even would have had otherwise. I think that's why I like that. I just put myself to sleep with that answer. Sorry, guys.
Paul, so I'll bring up your IMDb now. In 2006, you had 3 uncredited roles in How I Met Your Mother, Scrubs, and Days of Our Lives, and they
Oh
were
god,
all
yeah.
named Will.
Yeah.
Like, is that like just a coincidence, or do you just walk on set and say, "Hey, call me Will"? How does that
No,
happen?
there's a much bigger story there. There's a huge story, and I'll give you the really quick version of it. In 2004, I did a pilot with Taran Killam from SNL, and it was for Bill Lawrence, who's like Scrubs and Spin City, and it was a Bill Lawrence pilot, and what's the new one with Sudeikis?
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso, yeah. So it was a pilot that he wrote in 2004, and it was for the WB, and it was about these 2 guys who live in Ohio, and they're so sick of the boring old programming on TV that they send a video to the network, and the network says, "You guys think you're so funny? You can come and live on a soundstage." On one of the classic sound stages, they had like the Friends, they rebuilt the Friends Central Perk set, and we're like, you can come live on these classic sound stages, and we'll have a live audience actually watch you live on camera, and then we'll record you living on camera in front of a live audience. So this is a really sort of big concept pilot. And we shot the pilot, and it was incredible. And the network was like, we love it. It's a little too high concept. We're not gonna pick it up this year. But if you guys can build an online following as these characters, Derek and Will, and you can do it in a way that feels organic, without feeling like there's network involvement, because YouTube had just launched like that year. This like YouTube was a brand new thing. So they're like, if you guys can get videos on YouTube, we'll fund you, but you build a following, and then next year we'll launch the show. Like you'll have 1 million followers, so people will tune in. So we spent a year as Derek and Will trying to get on as much television as we could as Derek and Will, 2 guys from Ohio. We had a cell phone that had a number that we posted that people would like fans would call, and we just had it on us at all times. They'd be like, I just got this number from the internet. Is this Derek and Will? Be like, yeah, hey, what's going on? Like, we'd answer the phone and talk to random people from all over America. And then because we had NBC behind us, they got us like background on Scrubs. And you watch the episode of Scrubs, and it seemed like two guys had snuck into this scene. And as the camera goes past us, we both look down the lens and go, crazy. And you see Zach Braff walking away. And then we take that clip and post it online and go, Derek and Will are sneaking into all these things. Days of Our Lives. We're in the background as waiters having a huge like argument. And you can see it in the middle of the scene. There's these two idiots. And the shows were all part of it. Like, they're like, yeah, you guys can come and mess around. It's fine. The biggest one for us was we got invited to the Emmys because Scrubs was nominated. So Bill Lawrence gave us his seats for the Emmys. And we walked the red carpet. And then every time there was an interview, Steve Carell's being interviewed, we would pop up over his shoulder in these red valet outfits. And we're on camera in all of these like interviews. And then during the Emmys broadcast, the guy sitting in front of us won the Emmy for directing 24. And as he stands up, me and Taryn stand up behind him in red valet outfits in a sea of black tuxedos, and we're clapping. And it's on the broadcast. And you can see all these clips
My goodness.
that we did this year. And then we built this huge following. And then the head of NBC, I was like, you guys did such an amazing job. We're absolutely not going to pick up the show, but you guys did a really great job. And that was the end of that.
Oh, I feel like we need to bring this back.
Okay, so between
Maybe.
Amy's Olympic skiing and your whatever Will, this is absolutely great. This is gold, guys. Thank you.
If you search YouTube for like valets at the Emmys, I think it still comes up, and you can see we had like William Shatner stop us on the red carpet and go, I left something in my car. I need to access it. How do I get there? We're like, sorry, dude, we're actors. Like, wait, he's like, God damn it. He's so angry. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's the third thing I'm going to do after this podcast and look that up. But these are unrealized dreams.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should talk about the cases of Mr. Lang, because that's why we're here. So,
Yeah,
Amy, I already talked to Paul about this, but so for you, what was it that really drew you to this particular project, other than the ginormous paycheck? When you saw, Birdie and the script and everything, why did you want to be, in this one?
Well, the writing was the first. Had I known Paul was going to be part of this, it would be a no-brainer. But Paul had at the time not been attached yet, and they sent me the script written by a real life married couple, which I think is important because it reads very authentic, of Margot and Joel. And I loved how character driven it was, how grounded it was. Here's this woman playing online poker. It was goofy, it was quirky, it was a married couple, it wasn't a meet cute, which I was used to seeing on Hallmark. It was a little grittier. There's a divorce hanging in the midst. It was like nothing I had ever seen on the network before, and I really liked the writing. So it really started with the writing, and then I think like Moonlight, or people keep talking about Heart to Heart, it's all about the chemistry. And I always tell Paul, what's in between us is so much bigger than what each of us bring to the table. So it really, for me, was always a tennis match, and you cannot play tennis alone. So then I was like, well, who is going to be my partner in crime? And then, oh, I'm just so glad it all serendipitously happened so perfectly. Paul came on board, and Paul and I have actually worked together years ago on a pilot that did turn into a one-episode show with the creators of most known for Modern Family. So right before Modern Family, they had done this pilot, and and Paul and I met, and I just remember I still had him in my phone. I still had Paul's number in my phone. I always liked him, and I always thought he just gave like good guy vibes, very trusting spirit. And then 15 years later, it's true, 15 years later, here we are on this show, and then once we got to shooting it, it just took on a whole other level of magic. It was, yes, and it was a little bit of improvisation. It was really fun. It was collaborative. We really felt as actors that the writers were inviting us to bring our essences into the project, and then the network was
Mhm.
supportive. I mean, Hallmark rarely, I mean, Paul and I have been on a lot of shows with a lot of different networks, and rarely are networks asking us what we think or how we can elevate the material. They do not want to hear about actors,
No,
say your lines and do your thing, right? But I felt like it was so collaborative, and we're so glad it resonated with the fans because it was risky. I mean, Paul's more, more in tune with the Hallmark brand, but I felt like it was a little risky, a little bit of a, like,
it
out.
could easily have gone. The audience is pretty discerning when it comes to comedy, and also they have a long established history of what they like to see at the network. This was definitely all right, we'll see if we can do this. This was the first time, I think. Quirky has always been a word, I think. It no longer is, but quirky for the longest time was a word that seemed to scare everybody in the network. The characters could never be too quirky. They were a little more straight down the middle. And only in the last few years, as we've sort of ushered in a new era of storytelling, has quirky been celebrated more and more. And these two characters are sort of the epitome of quirky, and the storytelling and their relationship. There's everything is was this is very outside the box, particularly in the mystery genre for Hallmark, because their mysteries up until a couple of years ago had all been pretty similar in terms of tone and their structure, and this one just felt like something totally new, and it was a bit of a gamble, and obviously it's worked.
And I think the balance is, we really want to honor the Hallmark mystery fans who are so loyal and so fervent and so involved, which is an actor's dream to have people that care. And so you want to honor what's made Hallmark mysteries successful, which is red herrings and who done it and chemistry between the leads, and while also bringing this fresh perspective of, a married couple and biracial and all of these kind robots and animals, and just keeping what made it work and so special in the first place, and just like Paul said, evolving into, it's like having two kids, right? You don't love your first kid less, your heart just gets bigger. So luckily we feel like, the Hallmark mysteries fans have just almost opened up their heart to just include these two goofballs.
How do you think Alden and Birdie met, and what was their first date?
Ooh.
Oh man, how do they meet? Yeah, that's a really good question. What
Alden,
was
like
it
you said, is
like?
like growing up Peter Pan, and Birdie's law school. Well, Northwestern. We know what Birdie is. Essentially Aimee, triple major Northwestern. But
I want to say they wouldn't have matched on a dating profile. Like they wouldn't have matched on a dating service. I feel like it was in line at a coffee shop, and she's there getting her like a caramel macchiato or whatever her like soup. Now it would be like a low fat. It would be like a super whatever that thing is. And he comes in and he's ordering some stupid drink, and then just kind of is like being goofy, and maybe just caught her off guard, and she's like, what's this guy all about? And he was just being silly, and it was probably a really unexpected thing where they were like, he probably spilled coffee on her or something. He's like, oh, let me make it up to you, I'll buy you coffee, here, come sit. And she's just kind of like, this is the last thing in the world I expected. And I don't know who would have made the first move. Do you think he would have gone like, can I see you again? I don't know. Maybe he's kind of like, I don't
No,
think he has enough self-awareness to know that he
right.
probably, you know,
I picture it at a roller skating rink where Alden is a hobbyist obviously, and Alden is performing is like wrapping up this kids party, but that's where like the law firm social is, and Birdie is such a workaholic. She really doesn't want to go out. She'd rather be at home working. And her coworkers say, you got to go out, you have to live. You're always head down. So she goes to this law firm social at the roller skating rink, and Alden is dressed up like, you know, some
ding dong.
pirate, and he is very charming, and all the kids think he's super funny, and he's able to navigate these 9-year-olds, which is very difficult. And Birdie has her laptop, and she's at the roller skating rink doing work, squeezing in work, and he is just full of joy and laughter, and the kids are like belly laughing, and there's a twinkle, and she doesn't think much of it. I see the whole scene in my head. She doesn't think much of it. And then she says, I'm going to go finally get roller skates. So she goes to the roller skates, and he's returning his, and she's renting hers. So that's where I would say the meet cute is. And he's totally dressed like Arg, with like a full on Pirates of the Caribbean outfit. And she's dressed like, in a blazer. And, he gets hers and she gets his roller skates, so they have to switch because obviously his foot is bigger than hers, and he cracks some jokes and laugh, and
I hope so.
And then she asks him out, I think, and then she's like,
"Oh,
what are you doing this weekend?" And just, even if you are doing something, just pretend you're not, or just, I've never done this before, pretend I even said it. She gets a little nervous, and then he's like, yes.
I want you to save that entire thing. I want you to write it down. I want you to send it to Joel and Margot and pitch an episode where we flash back to that.
Okay.
100%. Like,
I love it.
My idea, not even close. That, or, she twists her ankle and he's like, here, I'll help you. Her friends are off skating. She's like, and he's, and he's got like a first aid kit with him because he would. And she's like, you really don't have to do this. And he's like taking ice out of his, something like that, helping her fully. That would be a really fun episode to flash back 10 years.
Yeah.
Like to Dorky. That's a really great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pitch that.
Okay, it's done. Created right in front of everyone.
Boom. No spoilers.
Okay. So I know we're on a little time crunch, and we're going to have to jump ahead a couple questions, but there's the famous salsa scene that everyone's talking about. Aimee, you're a professionally trained dancer. Paul, would you be a professionally trained dancer? And I want to know how that
ding dong.
I want to know how the scene went with the two of you guys dancing some salsa, because Aimee, I imagine you got that salsa nailed.
Yes,
you imagined correctly, Eric.
Yeah. Imagined correctly. I knew exactly what steps I was going to do. Super fun. I'll let Paul tell you how much fun we had and how much everyone loved the low cut shirt that he was wearing. It was all about Paul's chest that day.
That's why you skipped the pizza for a while, so you could look good, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Although I will say, I don't want to like break the illusion, but because I had requested a full spray tan, I thought it was like, I want him to have put on a full spray tan, like his entire chest, because he's in character. It did really accentuate it made me look like I have a much better looking chest than I do. It's like, oh, it was an added bonus. I got a message from Ben Ayers, who's another Hallmark regular, who was just messaged me specifically about that to ask if I had airbrushed pecs put on. He's like, what's going on here? And but anyway, no, I don't. Now I do have real pecs. I'm like, oh, now I have to work into that. So now I've been working out like a maniac. But the scene, I'll say to Amy's credit, like, and our writers are extraordinary, but when you get into a scene and when you see what the production design is, and when you get a sense of how many people are in this and what you're blocking, what it's going to feel like, it takes on a life of its own beyond what's on the page. So the writers write, Alden and Birdie do a salsa, and they're trying to get information, and they're kind of salsa dancing. And that's sort of a basic template for what the scene is to be. And to Aimee's credit, being type A and extremely impeccably prepared, she had actually really built the scene in her head already. She knew, because Birdie does really sort of take over the scene and Alden's trying to keep up. So Aimee had prepped what she wanted to do in that scene and came in with a whole world of ideas that the director hadn't thought of. This is us lending our voice to the movie. And she's like, I know exactly what this is going to be. And then for me as an actor, all I have to do is try and keep up, and it doesn't always work that way, that an actor is able to come in and go, I figured out the whole thing and this is what it's going to be. And everybody on board goes, yep, you're correct. But she did. She came in and she had the whole thing prepped and just sort of went off the rails with it. And the amount of joy that we had and that the background performers had and the crew had, letting us just be completely off the leash in the silliest, most over the top way. Of the two movies so far, I say it's probably top three, if not the top, my favorite scene that we filmed of the two movies. It was just people, like, the background was having so much fun. We couldn't stop laughing. Like, it was ridiculous. I don't know when you get to do that in a Hallmark movie, but that scene in particular, there's a couple scenes in this new one where we're like, how are we getting away with this?
But it takes two to tango. Like, you need someone who, like Paul. I knew Paul. If I spinned a little extra, Paul literally had my back. If I went into the dip a little early, I knew Paul. It's like those trust games where and I completely wholeheartedly trust Paul that he would have his mustache sticking out if I landed a little to the left instead of to the right. So it's really nice to have a partner where you just yes and you hold hands and you just jump off the cliff together.
fully in sync, right? With every movement, everything. Yeah.
So much fun. I really hope that the fun and the joy that we had making this radiates to the audience, because I think it should make you laugh. It obviously should make you think with the mysteries and the whodunit of it all. But we really just wanted to make people watching it be like, oh, these two. and just like, be everyone has an inner dork. I don't care how cool you are, we all have inner dorks. And what's so nice about Alden and Birdie is that they have no shame in unleashing this inner dork, especially Alden. So I think Alden's character, I feel like, is going to, as Ella Lopez, I feel like she was like the fan favorite on Lucifer because she was such a dork. And I feel like Alden is just so charming and so endearing and so earnest and so goofy that I don't think I've ever seen Paul play, because he's, Paul's a handsome dude. So he's usually playing these like love interests, but it was kind of nice to see you just flex your comedic muscles, your physical comedy, all sorts of comedy. And just, I think this is kind of your wheelhouse.
I think it is too, because I have an inner dork and an outer dork, and it's actually a lot easier to just be outwardly dorky than it is to try and be like leading man. Leading man is way tougher than just going, oh, I know how to be a total dork here, watch this, and just go off the leash. I think you feel the same way. I think you're like, you play a number of different types of roles, including leading lady, but when you get to be a total nerd, you're like, hold my beer, I got this.
So fun.
I know this. Yeah.
Yes. So we had a lot of fun.
Too much, probably. Oh, for sure. There's moments we got in trouble. I got in trouble a lot for laughing, to the point that it was like actually problematic for the production. And Aimee, bless your heart, you were really annoyed because I'm ruining every take, and you should be. I'm like, everybody was annoyed at me, and I was helpless. I was like a little baby who just couldn't stop. I blame Peter Benson mostly for that, who makes an appearance in this, and I was gasping for breath. I couldn't keep it together. I probably ruined the whole scene. I don't even know if it's any good, but boy, did I have fun.
It was like kids at camp with belly laughter, and I was like, if I start laughing, it's game over. Like that's it, but you have to laugh because
You gotta laugh.
for sure.
You have to.
All right, Aimee, I know you do have to get going, so hopefully I have time for one quick question still. But when I talked to Paul before, we talked about a co-star of both of yours, Trisha Heer, and how can we get her on the third episode? Because we just love her as fans. Paul said she was just wonderful to work with. Unless she turned horrible on Lucifer, I'm guessing that you had a pretty good experience with her. So how do we get her in the third one?
Oh, geez. I would love to have her come play. I think she lives in. Oh, well, now I think she's Canadian, right?
She's Canadian. It would work.
Yeah.
I mean, she would absolutely be eligible. Yeah.
I think we pitched this to the writers, and gosh,
So
she's a.
in your flashback scene, there she can.
There you go. There you go.
Imagine she comes back as Alden's ex-girlfriend.
Oh, that would be really good. And I would take off my earrings. I'd be like, de veras, de veras. And we part of Birdie. That
She's
would
like, yeah, I was a supermodel. I had a thing. You're like, but that was years ago. No,
that would be great. And you guys
that
are
would
both
be really funny.
beautiful and tall and perfect. Like,
She's into robots. That would be really funny.
oh my gosh! And you guys just totally hit it off. Like, she's beautiful and funny. That would be good.
We're gonna pitch that. That's a
You know
great
what?
idea.
I think you guys we don't need Margot and Joel anymore. You guys just have all the ideas now.
Well, this is how it happens. It's collaborative. I'm glad the audience got to see how it kind of rolled. This is behind the scenes, and so
Yeah.
you're seeing.
Also, Joel and Margot are extraordinary. They
Yeah.
are the best of the best writers. It's one thing to come up with a silly idea. It's a totally different thing to execute it, and they do so flawlessly and so fast that it makes me really angry as a writer. I don't know how you guys do this so quickly, but they're a gift.
And you know what I want to say also, you just sparked with mentioning the writers. I think that what Hallmark does so beautifully is crystallize magic and love and falling in love. And I think what they've done so masterfully is corner that market of love at first sight and getting butterflies in your stomach and the escapism into fantasy. And what I think, the Cases of Mystery Lane does so well is falling in love with someone who's already in your life and re-falling in love with them, whether it's, romantic or platonic or whatever it is. I think, we're so always searching for the next new thing in such a disposable society. But I think it's so beautiful to just look at your partner, your husband, your wife, your friend. You don't. I guess you just fall in love with your kids constantly, but people that or your kids.
No, you do. There is truth to that.
Why?
There is truth.
Yeah, like why you fell in love with them in the first place. So what I love is each episode they almost fall in love again, which I think hopefully is inspiring for people to watch it to re-fall in love with their spouse, because that to me is what is the roots of a really long lasting relationship, and it's relatable.
The recipe for longevity, should we say?
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Aimee. It's was like absolutely hilarious listening to your story. So loved it. Paul, thank you again for coming back. We know
Yeah,
what
you
Paul
bet.
has coming up, but do you have anything other than Cases, which is this Friday?
Yes, Friday the 13th, 9, 8 Central, and they're gonna play the original film right before. So we're excited about that. Um, I co-wrote a comic book called Day of the Dead Girl, which will be out in comic book stores October 9th, and it
Wait,
celebrates the Mexican
you also
culture.
do comic book? Jeez.
Yeah, so I wrote a story in this, and I co-wrote Glow and co-wrote Dungeons and Dragons. But this is our first original comic, and we're really excited. And it has science and witches and um, Mexican culture and
So cool.
serial killers. It's
So
very,
cool.
very dark, but it's very cool to create something that didn't exist, original IP. And and I'm reoccurring on a show that hasn't been announced yet, but
All
I'm really
right.
excited.
But
Well,
it's big.
I I'd like to thank you for coming on. I should hate you because you are just literally talented at everything, it seems. But like the envy is just oozing out of every pore of my body. But like I say, we're just really excited for the second episode of Cases Death is Listening. So it should be a blast. So both of you guys, thank you very much for joining us.
Of course,
Thanks,
thank you.
Eric. Happy
Bye.
to. Bye bye.